Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm your host, Curtis Smith. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And as always, a huge thanks to our community partners, Prime 47 Downtown, Tesco, and Shepherd Community Center. Without the support of those organizations, we would not be able to be with you every Thursday night at 9:30 right here on WHMB TV 40. Well, as always, we have a great show for you tonight. Our guest is Fred Yeakey from Providence Cristo Ray High School. Fred, thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely. I'm honored to be here.
It's a unique school that you work for, doing unique things in our community. Tell us, for those that don't know about your high school, tell us about it.
Absolutely. We are a private high school located here in Indianapolis. We are considered a network school, meaning that we were started in Chicago in 1995. It's a Cristo Ray network by Jesuit priests with the mission of destroying poverty through the vehicle of education.
Wow.
And the school's juice is that you get students who cannot afford private school experience. You only get those students, but then you create an intersection between public, private world, and urban education. And they work a job one day a week and they earn their way through high school.
So your students are in class 4 days a week and in a job 1 day a week.
Yes.
To help fund their education.
Solely.
And how does that work?
Yeah.
I mean, does that go well?
I'm telling you, it's a little different, right? Because most internships are for college students. But what many are finding out that if you wait until college to develop a pipeline, it's too late. So these organizations have really developed, say, hey, we want to really create a pathway, and we have to start much sooner because certain sectors are dying out. So this idea of wanting to create a private school for families who are often forgotten about is remarkable, but then the funding model is even more because families can afford it, but then you create an opportunity for three things. Number one, for these students to be exposed to pathways that they normally wouldn't be exposed to. Secondly, while you're exposing them, now they have a vision of creating other ways out of their circumstances. And thirdly, now you're creating an opportunity for corporate America in these places to develop a pipeline.
So it started in Chicago in 95. When did it come to Indianapolis?
Yes, so we were recruited through a feasibility study by some of the business leaders of the day, one of which is John Lechleiter, the former president and CEO of Eli Lilly. And he was saying that Indianapolis really does a great job of attracting talent, but a horrible job of raising it. And if we don't do something to affect our economic stability here, we're going to be in trouble. So he had the beckoning cry. And we've been in Indianapolis since 2007.
Okay.
And now we're celebrating our 15th year here.
So with 15 years under your belt, or 14, enough time has gone by that you can look. There's some data, there are some results for kids that have graduated, gone to college, gotten into the community. What has that looked like as you look at your alums? How have they been able to integrate into society, and have they been successful?
Yes, I have so many great stories, but I kind of start with some quick data. For the last 13 years, we've been 100% of all of our students that graduate have been accepted into college.
Wow.
100%. And that's significant because on average,
it is.
Our students come about 2 grade levels behind in math and English, which isn't absurd when you're dealing with urban education.
Well, even if they weren't coming in at that level, to be 100% college acceptance is remarkable.
That's transformational. And we are a college prep school. So we understand that a significant barrier to eradicating poverty is through the vehicle of not just education, but faith. We have those two things because we have to have character development. And if you can find a way to touch that person you can't see in the mirror, then your successes of breaking those cycles are great. And we've been successful. We've had many students that have came to our schools, had no idea about college, had no idea about careers, and now they are actually working in the same places where they intern at. One is working at Eli Lilly. She was a sophomore working in a chemistry lab. In a chemistry lab where she wasn't even supposed to work, by the help of John Lechleiter, and she wound up being published in a national article for helping to identify a drug for cancer relief because the oxygen levels was off. Graduated, went to Franklin College University on a full ride scholarship, and now she works in the same lab that she was a chemistry lab or a technician in when she was 14, right? And serves on our board, just transformational.
Yeah.
But it all started with vision.
Can you even put into words how that makes you feel?
You know what? Number one, it makes me feel old. Thank you. Okay. I was at school yesterday.
I feel you there.
Yeah. So today was our first day of school. Like all of our students were there. So last night, I was cutting hair, and I developed a program where I cut hair and I mentor a young man, because everyone has to have a fresh haircut. And I had in our brand new school building, some woman came and said, "Hey, Mr. Yeakey." I was like, "Who's this woman?" Well, it was one of my students that has now graduated from IU Bloomington, graduated from University of Indianapolis, and now is in grad school at IU Bloomington in her own condo. And she's coming and telling me about all the great things they have. And these people looking at me like, "How old are you?" I'm like, "I don't want to talk about it." It makes me feel proud that I just played a small part of helping someone see their potential as God does.
How critical is the faith component to the school and to the success of the students?
You know what? I would venture to say that the secret sauce that many people think that Providence Cristo has is the unique, robust internship. And I would say that is significant. But I would say what's even more valuable is that we can use the name of Jesus openly. And the things that Jesus does when his name is applied can never be measured. And the fact that we open up with prayer, we include that in our counseling. We bring in religious services. So we are a Jesuit school, but we also have people of other faith come in. I preach sometime. My pastor comes in and preach. We have gospel choir. When you bring in a holistic level of God, it makes everything better. I say that is the reason why we are successful.
98% of your students are students of color.
Yes.
And 100% getting some sort of financial assistance would not be able to afford the private education otherwise, right?
Indeed. So 100% of our students all must qualify financially to come to our school. And we do that because although our school is great, a lot of people want to come and take advantage of these unique opportunities. But if that happens, and those who really need it, who we have to go and get, because we have our own buses. We go all around Indianapolis to those areas who don't have an opportunity, and we bring Christ in our school to them. If we don't do that, then those sheets will be taken. So 100% of our students are all eligible for free and reduced lunch, and they also receive what we call the Indiana Choice Voucher, which is the educational credit that you can apply to tuition if your family chooses to attend so.
Fred Yeakey, he's going to be with us for a second segment. We're going to continue the conversation with Fred. We're going to hear a little bit more about that cutting hair stuff he mentioned coming up in just a moment. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Restoring Hope. I'm Curtis Smith, your host, and we're continuing our conversation with Fred Yeakey. Fred, thanks for spending a little more time with us tonight.
Certainly.
Let's talk about something you mentioned briefly in the first segment. You cut hair. And you have a barbershop initiative. What is that? Tell us about it.
No, absolutely. The history of it is, this is a true story, by the way. So it started back when I was in college. I was blessed to have a mom and dad from Indianapolis. I went to, I think, the best high school, Arlington High School. In the early 2000s, graduated. I had a marching band scholarship. When I went to college, I needed money, couldn't call home to mom and dad. So I had a good friend, and I've always had the gift of gab, and I convinced him that I could cut hair. I couldn't cut hair, but I thought that I could. So when I cut his hair, I messed it up, and I did the one thing you're never supposed to do. I took his hairline back, but back then it was cool to wear headbands. So he was like, "It's not that bad, I can cover it." But I was impressed because when I cut his hair, it wasn't that bad. And I started cutting, I became the college campus barber. So that gift stayed with me. When I came back home to Indy, I started running after school programs. And when I got into education, I went back to my alma mater, Arlington High School, to teach. And I was really struggling because it wasn't what it was when I went there. I had a group of young men that I was losing to the communities. I was losing to the neighborhoods. And I asked the Lord, I said, "God, what can I do to reach them?" They hated school, but something strange happened. When the bell rung, they never left. So I said, okay, so I need a place to belong in. And I said to the principal, "Hey, can I start a club where I cut hair?" He's like, please do it. So I told the young man, "Hey, I can cut hair," and they didn't believe me. And high school kids can be very critical.
But by this point, you actually could cut hair.
I could cut hair.
Okay, you were good at it now.
And I had this one student said, "If you mess me up, I'm going to ruin your career." And I knew I had one shot, so I stayed after school. And I cut hair, and he was like, "Wow, this is really good. Can I pay you?" And that's when I said, "Nope, I don't want your money, but pay attention." And that's when I knew that I had something valuable that if I can give away for free,
Yeah.
I can reach them. And it changed. Every one of those young men graduated. We talked about everything from God, faith, and that's carried with me everywhere I went. So as a teacher, one of the things that I offer is that I'm going to give free haircuts. So instead of you being suspended, you're going to have after-school detention in my barbershop club. And I bring in guest speakers, and I groom them. But the power is that now I can groom the man they can't see in the mirror of their soul. And I'm able to touch them, and they're successful with a haircut.
And talk about the growth. So you started with just a few kids. What has it looked like over the years? How many kids have you been able to impact through
You know
this?
what? I've been doing this since 2007. I got married in 2009, and my wife allowed me to continue to fund it. So since I'll say about 2010 to now, I've been having a formal program in schools, anywhere between 500 to 1,000 young men.
Wow.
We've been able to, just with a haircut, spark a revival.
Wow.
And the revival is more so finding who are you created to be. You know, in Romans, the 12th chapter, verses 1 through 2, God talks about the power of presentation. And we talk about what does it mean to be a man and how does a haircut do it? You know, and for those that don't understand, you know, a haircut for a guy is not just a regular thing. You know, it's a big deal. And when you get a haircut, it changes you. And they see that difference, and we add the transformation to their lives so it can go in other areas.
Do you have any tip for somebody who's balding? Is there any coming back from the thinning out, receding process that's going on here?
You know what? I'm asking God that if he can anoint my hands, if we can have a Lazarus moment, he'll do it, because I too am doing it. But there are things out there that can help us, like hair fibers, that just for a moment, they can bring us back, but it doesn't last.
Yeah, I don't know about that. At this point, I'm praying that God will just take it all. I'm ready to go cue ball, I think.
Cue ball, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. On a more serious topic, Fred, you are so connected with youth through the high school and through the barbershop. And I wonder what you have seen over the last couple of years in terms of mental health, because mental health is our focus here on the show. And we talk all the time about how it wasn't getting better. Then the pandemic hits, and it just seemed to put us into hyperspeed on things getting worse.
Yeah.
Has that been playing out in the kids that you've seen in both venues, the high school and the barbershop?
I would say it has been. I think we've always, as you said, we were already on the edge.
Right.
Social injustice, just the way things are and how much information one can take in. It's hard to process if you don't have the knowledge to do so. And what we were seeing was an overload of information that comes along with feelings. And when you deal with a pandemic where now you have isolation, it makes it worse.
Yeah.
One of the challenges that I've seen in school in particular is that having students to come back to a community after you have so many time or so many hours away from community and isolation, you do a lot of internalization. You have a lot of feelings. We've hired social workers, and we're blessed at our school to have multiple social workers. One focuses on therapy and counseling, and the other on social and emotional learning. And we're finding that not only is the mental health important for our students, but even for the staff. And many educators are leaving the field, which is a ministry, because of their own internal struggles. So we've built in areas where we can have opportunities to talk, pray, as well as to bring back community in small huddles, and we found that pretty successful.
Yeah, it's going well.
It is. We even have something where we have QR codes around the building, that if you don't feel good, take a picture. If you do feel good, take a picture. You want someone to talk to, and that's for staff and students. So the level of intimacy of counseling can increase.
When you break the barrier of everyone knows what's going on with me, do kids really embrace that? Are they scanning the QR codes? Are they truly getting invested?
We found it's more successful for these younger minds to have intimacy when they take it versus people in their business versus saying, hey, I need help.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that some don't, but the majority don't. They still want to have this facade. And we have a barrier, I think, in this country that we need to break through to say it's okay to ask for help. Yeah. Christ was the one who said, all these are heavy laden burden, I come to give you rest. Yeah. So opening up the opportunity and creating a safe space where we can model how to do it has been effective for us.
That's wonderful. Fred, thank you so much for being with us tonight, but even more so for all that you're doing for the next generation. It's just incredible to see how you're pouring into them. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Sam.
Yeah,
appreciate your prayers.
Of course. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Each week here on Restoring Hope, we bring you our Beacon of Hope segment. Tonight, Crosswinds chaplain Will Gross is here to focus on a word we talk about occasionally, but most of us don't do a good job of putting it into action: rest.
Hi, I'm Will Gross, a chaplain from Crosswinds Counseling, and tonight I'd like to bring you a message of hope. Do you ever feel downtrodden? Do you feel tired? Do you feel worn down by the pressures of life, as if the world is just pulling you to the ground and you can't find any rest? I have definitely felt that way, and I find hope in knowing that I serve a God who prioritizes rest. We see this all the way back in Genesis, in the creation story. After God makes the world in 6 days, the seventh day he takes to rest. I think that God is setting a pattern for you and for me and how we should live our lives. And I think that's a physical rest. But what about a spiritual rest? Jesus talks about this too in the Gospel of Matthew. He says, "Are you tired? Are you worn out? Burnt out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." That's the message of hope. Jesus wants to give you rest. He wants to give me rest. He wants to give rest to the whole world. And that's the message of hope that I want you to hear tonight.
Welcome back to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. In life, we all have moments, even seasons, of grief. In this week's Counseling Corner segment, Laura Bruce is here to share thoughts on how we can handle grief well.
My name is Laura Bruce, and I am a licensed therapist here at Crosswinds Counseling. And today I just wanted to talk a little bit about grief and why it can be important to meet with a therapist regarding grief. And the first thing I thought of was that a lot of people in grief need to be led by someone in that, because a lot of us spend a lot of emotional energy avoiding pain. And so part of the process of meeting with a therapist can just be the accountability to process our pain in healthy ways and to be with someone safe that can hold whatever we bring to the table with our grief. A lot of times with grief, things can kind of get stuck. Even in our physical bodies, grief can kind of manifest itself. And so helping clients process grief in healthy ways that help clients be able to express that can be a real benefit from counseling. Another thing, just the intentionality of grief, and that helping clients know how to notice their grief and to, again, express it in healthy ways. I think a lot of people don't know how to set apart time to grieve and don't recognize that is actually an important part of the grief process, is that we're making space for it, and a therapist can help teach the skills and abilities that help clients be able to do that on their own. A therapist can help clients be able to name their emotions and better understand their experience with grief. And then the fourth thing would be to understand the stages of grief so that clients know that their experiences are normal and can be from anything from denial to anger to sadness, and just know that all of that is a normal process. So I think a therapist can help just validate those stages for someone experiencing a variety of different emotions that come up with that. So I was just thinking about grief as even adjustments can be grief, and whether that be a job change or our kids going back to school. We don't have to minimize that. That can all be loss and change and are important to identify and process with someone. So if you feel like a therapist could be beneficial in walking through some of the loss that you might be experiencing on any level, we would love to help you with that.
Thanks, Laura. Handling grief well is so important because it's something that we all have to deal with at some point. Well, as we wind down tonight, a reminder that Crosswinds Counseling is hiring counselors. The need has never been greater. The mental health need around our city, our state, our world is as high as it's ever been. And Crosswinds Counseling is hiring counselors here in Indianapolis, in Northern Indiana, and in Dayton, Ohio now. You can go to crosswindscounseling.org/careers to see all of the opportunities. There are opportunities for therapists and counselors, but also some in the business office as well. If you or someone you know would be a good fit for Crosswinds Counseling, please send them to crosswindscounseling.org/careers. Thank you all for being with us tonight. We enjoy this time with you every Thursday night so much. Thanks as always to our community partners who make it possible for us to be here: Tesco, Prime 47 Downtown, and Shepherd Community Center. Without their support, we would not be here every night, every Thursday night at 9:30 on WHMB TV 40. And thanks to our friends here at the station that make it possible for us to be with you. We will be back next week, Thursday night, 9:30, right here on WHMB TV 40. We hope that you join us then. Have a great week, stay safe, and be blessed.